friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aireonna, joined by Marco. I'm so glad that you're back like normally now. Um, I hope everyone's having a really good weekend so far. Happy Friday. How's your Friday going, Marco?
It's going well. So today's a half day for me at work, so I was able to only work half the day in the morning, and I get to enjoy the rest of the day and finish up a puzzle me and my wife started. It's a 1,000 piece puzzle. Hopefully we finish it by tonight. We started it
I
yesterday,
love that.
so hopefully we finish it tonight.
That's so fun. Is it like all over the table, spread out on the table?
Yeah, so it's on her. So she has a work desk, so we have it on her work desk, and we're taking turns like
More
going
important,
and
more
yeah.
important activities for the work desk. I love that. Okay. Um, Oh, that's adorable. That's really cute. I like that a lot. Is it raining
No,
down where
actually, it's supposed to be raining. It hasn't started raining yet. I believe it was supposed to rain yesterday too, but it didn't really
it's been
rain. So
pouring rain here.
that's
Crazy.
crazy.
So crazy. I'm are you a fan of the some people like the rain, the cold weather. Are you a fan or are you not a fan?
Um, so I would say I don't know. Like I like when it rains, but I don't like being cold. Like even in the summer, like
I
around my
feel
house,
that.
I always have a blanket. So like I like it because I get to have my blanket, but I don't like the cold. Like I don't like being cold.
I feel that. I feel that. I'm going I'm visiting slash staying with a friend in New York for a month or so coming up soon. And that's the number one thing I'm worried about because I was born in Northern California, but then I spent like 10 years in Southern California and I am a Southern California girl. Like I need it like 75 is cold to me. Like
That's
I don't like it.
crazy.
I don't like it at all. Like um and so yeah, I was just like going through all the clothes I own, trying to like get jackets because it's like snowing. And I was like, I don't own things for it to be snowing. Like my winter attire is like a dress that has long sleeves. So yeah, it's gonna be a wake up call. I was telling my friend, I was like, I'm gonna just wear everything that you own. But I'm like you, I hate being cold. The weird thing is I like it being cold when I go to bed. Because this is gross. Maybe
Makes
I
sense.
sweat
I
in my
swear,
sleep.
yeah, same. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
get that.
I like it to be like cold at night in my bed, but I like any other time. Like I especially like when I wake up in the morning. I grew up in like, do you know where Russian River area is?
Sounds familiar, but not too much.
It's like wine country, Sonoma County
Okay,
area.
okay, that's
But it
Sonoma
used to get
County.
so cold that like our car windows would like have ice on them and everything. I know there's probably like people from the Midwest that are like, this is not a big deal, but you can't like get out of bed in the morning. Like my dad, I grew up with my dad. I lived with my dad growing up, and he was like the best dad ever because he would start the fire. Like he'd wake up like an hour before us, and he would start the fire to get the house warm. Because I like could not get out of bed when I was a kid, like because you're just like so warm in your little things. But we'll stop talking about
When I
weather.
woke up, the reason why I'm checking my phone because when we woke up, the weather here was 52 degrees where I'm at. So you're saying like it being cold, not too bad. I mean, your cold is you said 75 is cold. My kind of cold is like once it hits below 60, that's where I'm like, all right, it's cold. But what's crazy is when me and my wife were in Miami, we thought the weather was perfect. It was 60 degrees, like the humidity was
It
going.
has like a humidity that helps, right?
Yeah, so like we thought it was perfect. The weather, like this is perfect. That's not too hot. It's not cold. And we're sitting next to a group of Dolphins fans, and like they're all like hoodied up, like shiver, like those two guys, and they're like shivering, and then he'll like we're looking at what the heck. He's like, "This is freezing weather." I'm like, "This is 60 degrees with humidity. Like this is great weather." So uh, every temperature, like it's different. Like every like Northern California versus Southern California, their cold is different than ours,
Yeah.
and going to
Same
the
with
snow is
heat.
gonna be crazy.
Same with heat. I went to Vegas and I remember thinking that like you would like die because it was all the weather report was it was like 115, 150. I was like, how do people go outside? That it's like not real. I don't whatever the heat report is in
Yeah,
Vegas, you should never it's their 115 is like our like 90. Like
Yeah, I agree.
it wasn't like cold, like it was definitely hot. But like if it's here at 115, like you're gonna die. Like you cannot go outside. Like it is so hot. I like walked from the hotel to like everywhere we went.
I agree. I agree. We recently was same thing, but I agree with you.
Yeah, I remember. So weird. People are like, we didn't come here for weather reports, but but the 49ers are going to be playing the Commanders, and the reason we're talking about the weather is because no one is concerned about this upcoming game. We're going to start with the injury report for the 49ers from Friday's practice so far. Marco, do you have injury updates from Friday's practice previewing? I
Yeah.
was going to
So
say following, previewing
for
this Commanders.
the injury report for Sunday versus the Commanders, we got some key players out. We obviously Rick Armstead is going to be out again with that foot injury. Juwan Jennings out with a concussion, just going on his second week. Jair
Yeah,
Brown, a knee
damn.
sprain, and then Jalen Moore, the essentially was a swing tackle last week, is also out with a concussion, and then questionable. Aaron Banks with a toe, Avery Thomas with a hamstring, Demetrius Flanagan Fells has an illness, and so does Jordan Mason with an illness. So it looks like the Niners will be out with a couple of key players. The one that's more notable that has been added to the list is Jair Brown. We're going down on safety pretty thin on the safety group, losing Hufanga, losing the replacement with this knee sprain. Um, that's what's concerning to me right now.
Yeah. I know they signed Logan Ryan, but Kyle Shanahan in his press conference seemed very bleak about it. He was like, if you're a linebacker and you tell me that you can play safety, I'm putting you back there at this point. He was like looking at media members, sizing them up, like which one of you might not completely get blown over. We need someone. Um,
They're gonna have
but
to end up
no,
calling Croc, man. See if Croc can play safety for a game.
there you go. There you go. Are you the weird thing with that with the Jair Brown knee sprain, I know I was looking, it says like a minimum of 2 weeks, even if it's the weakest, like the lowest strain possible. But Jair Alexander, who plays for the Packers, I was like listening to the broadcast because he got thrown out of the game for some weird thing, but they were talking about him, and I guess he's had a knee sprain and he didn't miss a single game. So I don't know, but maybe it just depends on like severity and stuff of those types of things.
Yeah,
But when
so
I
it's
first heard about that, I thought of him because I had just heard. I was like, oh, apparently you can play through that depending on how much it is.
depending on how severe the sprain is, you could play through something. It's a grade, obviously, 1, 2. Some players could play through the pain. I mean, it's not recommended, especially with some support. But when you're the Green Bay Packers and they're fighting for a playoff spot, I think that's why Jair Alexander was trying to play through it. Versus Jair Brown, Niners are kind of locked into that playoff spot already. Now the seating isn't locked in, but you have the luxury of sitting him until he's fully right for the playoffs.
And you said that Trent Williams was totally good to go in practice, right? That's what I saw.
Yeah, Debo, and Brock Purdy are off the injury report, so they're good to go. They're guaranteed, not guaranteed to play because we don't know if we're going to be live on Sunday, quote unquote, Kyle Shanahan, but they're good to go for this Sunday's game.
I was just thinking because I think it was with you. I was talking about there's a stat that the 49ers, up until last game, in a game with Debo Samuel, Trent Williams, and Brock Purdy, had only scored above 30 points and won every game. And Brock Purdy had like 30 touchdowns and all the things. But I wonder if that doesn't count the games where they go out because Trent Williams ended up leaving the game, but he left the game in my opinion after the game was kind of already lost. Um, Now for Washington, I wanted to talk about their injury report, but actually really quick, I hope Juwan Jennings is okay because there wasn't even reports of him like participating on the sidelines of practice. And if you I remember when Brock Purdy had a concussion, I went through the like steps of the protocol, and it's like step 3 that you're at least like sideline working. So I really hope he's like going on a second week and not even in the third step. Like a lot of people go through that when it was first announced. I think a lot of people thought he would have been able to make it by Monday because it was like a longer week. So that's a bad concussion for him.
So yeah, no. So what's crazy is with concussions, it's one of those ones where each player recovers differently. Each hit is different. And I know we talked about it last time. We talked about the Brock Purdy injury and the concussion on how people were trying to say it was the QB sneak, but I was saying it actually could have been on one of the hits that he had in the one of the first drives we had that game against the Vikings where he landed, hit the back of his head. It all just depends on how your head rattles, and for Jawan Jennings, it definitely sounds like it's serious. Every concussion is very serious, but what he's probably going through is something I went through, where it's light sensitivity. So
Yeah.
you have major headaches, and what happens is the light is kind of essentially an all time migraine. So once that goes away, he'll be able to progress. Because when I had that, it was a similar situation. Like I've had a couple of concussions where I bounced back from within that week. Like, oh, you feel like yourself, no symptoms. But he's probably dealing with a dose of the light sensitivity, and it's going to continue the headaches, which is you cannot get out of that step until your headache starts going away. So hopefully he's back for the following week. If not, luckily we have some playoff times to get him right.
Yeah, that's scary. I've knock on so much wood. I have a friend who like really struggles with migraines and stuff. I've only had one concussion in my whole life, and I don't know how. I so much respect to football players and the fact that people are like, oh, just a concussion, just have to go through the protocol because that shit was terrible. I like
Mm-hmm.
couldn't people like I couldn't hear them talk. Like it was I have a gym that I used to go to, and it was I'm not kidding, I think 2.5 weeks later, and I felt generally better like in my daily life. And the gym like plays really loud music. And I literally had to go to a different gym. Like I like switched gyms because it was so like the light was so bright and the music was so loud that my head I would be like crazy. I have so much respect for the guys who go all the way through that. Now, did you say an update for Aaron Banks's toe? Is he questionable or is he good to go?
Yeah, he's questionable, so it kind of sounds like he'll play through it. I know Kyle Shanahan mentioned that it was less severe
Less.
than the first one, which was I believe turf toe. So hopefully he's able to play. If not, we're going to be playing probably John Feliciano at left guard, Burford at right guard, and then McKivitz at right tackle.
Not ideal for anyone. Okay. Well, then I also wanted to talk about the Washington Commanders. So you and I were talking about they've been out of their star running back, Brian Robinson, and their backup running back for quite some time. Most notably, earlier in the week, Jacoby Brissett was announced as a starter, and Sam Howell was benched. But then today it came out that Jacoby Brissett had a hamstring tweak in practice. Do you think that that's the Washington Commanders trying to like mess with the 49ers, or are they just such a mess that it's just a dumpster fire and they might be starting Sam Howell after publicly saying they were going to bench him?
So you remember the no Bijan Robinson incident that happened in Atlanta, where they didn't report he was sick, and then now they recently been fined and
Yeah.
picks being are likely going to be taken. I think it's kind of a situation where Jacoby Brissett did tweak his hamstring, and normally a team would like I mean, you never want to have to report a player's injured, but they're guaranteed. I'm pretty sure he's injured. They're not just announcing that just to announce it to mess with the Niners. Um, Sam Howell likely doesn't play. I mean, he's questionable. Jacoby Brissett's questionable to play, so he likely plays. But even if they go to Jacoby Brissett or to Sam Howell, I don't think Sam Howell will feel any kind of way, even though he was benched. When you're young in your career, you can't take it any certain way. You've been playing bad the past few weeks. The team isn't doing too well, um, so they're just gonna go with the veteran, and hopefully they could lose so they could pick a quarterback in the top five. That's their plans. Kind of what it looks like.
It is. It feels like it kind of looks like there should be a way for the 49ers for the Washington Commanders just to be like, we forfeit this game. Because the most important thing for the 49ers, in my opinion, everyone, we're going to talk about is there any way for them to win, any pathway for them to win. I literally think Brock Purdy could rehab his 4-pick game and they might not win. Um, so So the most important thing is for the 49ers to not injure their injured players more and to also not get anyone else injured. Um, I was looking at it with the injury report. I'm confused about Ambry Thomas because when Jason Verrett was put in, I was in the game against the Ravens and immediately gave up a touchdown. I was really upset because Ambry Thomas had been holding his own, done very well for multiple games, and then he did it. It was just the timing of it because he did really good all game. Then Ambry Thomas had a little bit of a slip up. The Ravens made a catch on him, and then the very next play they put Jason Verrett in, and then Verrett gives up a touchdown. So I was like, did Ambry Thomas get benched for Jason Verrett? Then Kyle Shanahan said that they had been wanting to see Jason Verrett in the game, so they were planning on putting him in no matter what. Um, but then like I had asked about it, and then people said, oh no, he was injured, and now he's questionable with a knee. So was Ambry Thomas benched for Jason Verrett, or does he just have a knee issue and he was?
I'm gonna go with the injury and the knee issue because if he was benched, then it changes my attitude towards things because I thought it was stupid to play Jason Verrett in the beginning. Now I get there's that sentimental value that oh we love JV because he's been around for so many years, he's been injured, came back, injured, came back. 49ers locker room loves him, but it's like when you have a player who's playing as good as Ambry Thomas has been, he should not be leaving the field. I don't care. Like you should not be benching him. Now I don't think he was I don't think he was um, injured at that time, and the reason I think that is because he came back later in the game and was being played the rest of the game. So I don't think
Yeah.
he was injured. I mean, I could be wrong. Injuries, the way injuries work, they're tricky in the NFL. You be injured, you come out of series, they realize it's not that severe. You go out there and you play, and then throughout the practice week, they're letting you rest when you technically could practice fully. But you have to document it as an injury. So I hope he wasn't benched because we're benching him for old veterans who let's say it how it is are washed up. Like JV he was a stud in his prime. He was the top corner when he was fully healthy at his prime. At post injuries, he's not the same guy. Doesn't have the same burst. Doesn't have the same speed he once had. So we're benching a player who is playing like a top 15 corner, top 20 corner in the league right now. It makes no sense for us to be benching a guy like that because one, his confidence is sky high. His play is showing on the field. You can look up the stats that everyone uses to defend corners. He's up there in every category right now. So to me, if Steve Wilks and Kyle Shanahan are benching Ambry Thomas for something on the field, I'm very confused by it, and I'm kind of concerned because this late into the season, you should not be figuring out or benching and rotating corners because what's going to happen is you're going to break your corner's confidence. You're going to end up playing Jason Verrett in the playoffs. And if you play him in the playoffs, you're playing against good receivers, he's going to get cooked. I'm at that point where
He got cooked in the Ravens game.
I give him, I'm not going to, so for that Ravens touchdown, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Covering for a while.
He was covering for a while, but when you go to the point of the catch point and the break point, he's not strong enough at the break point. He gets beat, isn't able to break on the ball and touchdown. So for me, it's like, man, like we should not be playing Ambry Thomas. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion, and that people could be like, well, who else do you want to play? Play anyone else but Jason Verrett. Like, we have other guys on the roster that could play corner.
People in the comments are kind of saying define easily, not easily. It's going to be a nail biter, and then some people say it should be easy, but they're worried about the Rams game. So there's some disagreements on whether or not this game will be easy. I was going to ask you if there's any way to victory, any pathway that you see to victory for the Commanders. Now, once again, Jacoby Brissett out. The Commanders will also be missing their starting left tackle, Charles Lenoir Jr. I can't say it. They're missing their left tackle, their center, their right tackle is questionable. They moved their good players, one to our team and one to the Bears. And they're also out their starting running back and their backup running back. I don't like that's very, they're going through it. They're really going through it. I don't think they want to win. I don't think they're going to try to win. But if you had to, put your head together and come up with a strategy that they would win, a lot of people, I thought this was, no offense, but very dumb. I heard someone say, like, the Ravens put out a blueprint against Brock Purdy and against the Commanders. And so the way that that Brock Purdy and the 49ers bounce back is when they beat the Commanders. Like, the Commanders can't pull it off, then obviously the 49ers came up with a strategy to like combat their blueprint. I don't think the Commanders have the personnel to replicate anything that the Ravens did. So does a win against the Commanders, would that alter your opinion of where the 49ers are right now, or is it more just to be expected?
I mean, they should handle the Commanders like nothing. I see might be a Commanders fan, Mr. Cool, saying it's going to be 36-34 Commanders. Lay off the weed, Stephen A. Smith style. Because when you look at the Commanders now, they could put up points, and what I mean by that is Brian Robinson, I believe, was limited this week. He hasn't played for a couple of weeks, I believe. Could be mistaken, but he's limited this week. So that's their starting running back. But their receiving core is the way to beat us. And what I mean by that is you got Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, 3 receivers, and Diami Brown, who are good receivers. I think Curtis Samuel was that they try to use him in that Debo role. But you have Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, who could beat you over the top. They could beat you as a route runner. If Jacoby Brissett and those 2 receivers could get going, that offense could do something. Now,
in your opinion, is Jacoby Brissett a better quarterback than Sam Howell? Like, would they be better off with him?
So there's a difference between better quarterbacks, right? Like, so I've always been, and I've said it before, like the talent, Sam Howell has better talent, right? Like, he has a stronger arm, he's a little bit more mobile. But Jacoby Brissett's been in the league and he understands who he is as a quarterback, that he can run that offense better because he's not gonna do something that he knows he can't do in the NFL. He's gonna do what he can do. And what I mean by that is him and Terry McLaurin, him and Jahan Dotson, they're not gonna do what, in my opinion, what I thought Howell was doing. Howell played good at some points and he played bad at some points. Now, what Howell's biggest issue was thinking everything could go deep. Everything is home run. Everything is XYZ versus you're going to see
what
Jacoby.
that's like now.
Oh, yeah. But the thing is with Jacoby Brissett, it's what are my limitations? It's kind of like, for example, Brock Purdy, right? Brock Purdy knew his limitations to start when he first started for the 49ers, that last year, right? Knew his limitations, wasn't going to do too much. That's Jacoby Brissett. I'm not going to do too much, and I'm just going to do what I can, and this offense will move. So for them, I think Jacoby Brissett is a better start for them. However, Sam Howell should be the one starting because if you don't end up with one of the top quarterbacks, Sam Howell's going to be your quarterback next year, whether you like it or not. So for him, just let the rookie go through the ups and downs.
I think they'll draft a quarterback no matter what, even if it's in the late, like even later, right? Because Sam Howell wasn't he drafted in the 5th round or something, or third?
I believe he was. I believe he was drafted in the 4th. I could be mistaken, but with Sam
I'm just
Howell,
saying, like, he's not owed any continuing.
no, he's not owed money. He's not owed any money. But what I mean by for example, if you're not picking within the top 4 picks, I think number 1 obviously is going to go Caleb Williams. Number 2, someone might try to trade up with Arizona. So whoever's at 3 is going to try to trade up with Arizona or 4 to get Drake May. Now, if you don't get one of those 2 quarterbacks, if from what I believe the Commanders right now, the draft order, I believe they're picking 4th or 5th. Now, if you're picking at that spot, or they're picking 3rd actually, someone's going to leapfrog them if it stays as is. Someone's going to try to leapfrog them, which I believe it'd be New England trading up with Arizona to go ahead and get Drake May. Now, if that happens, picking at 3 is way too early to take a guy like Jaden Daniels. So you're either going to have to trade down to get Jaden Daniels, Or you take the offensive tackle. Their O-line hasn't been great. They have good receivers, and you let Sam Howell be your quarterback next year. And you draft Penix or Bo Nix in the second or third round, depending on where they go. But for me, it
I've heard
looks
the
too much.
Bonex. I've heard his name a lot. I've heard he's.
I mean, I don't think he's a first round quarterback. Some people do. Um, I think he's a good college quarterback. But for Washington, their recipe to win is hoping their passing attack can beat us. Their running game is solid when Brian Robinson's there. Our run defense hasn't been the greatest of late. So if you could allow the Commanders to go into an offensive game plan where it's going to be a heavy dose of Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Brian Robinson, their offense is going to give you something. But their defense, they're no corners. They're out of safety. So when you look at their
Oh yeah,
defense,
I don't know if I said that, but they're out of their 2 starting corners and their safety, but they are starting. I said this before the show. Tariq Castro Fields, 49ers
yep.
legend. And by that, I mean the 49ers drafted him, I think, in the 6th round and then like cut him in training camp. But way to go. Way to go him.
So
Starting against revenge game for him. Is he going to get a pick on Brock Purdy?
if he does, that's crazy. If he does, that is crazy. I'd be shocked if he got like it would put me in a situation where like, well, damn, like him getting a pick on us, like that'd be cool. That'd be crazy because I thought the Niners should have kept him as a special teamer. Doesn't hurt to have special team guys. They cut him. He got picked up. Now with him, if he could show something, this is a team that's going to be in a big rebuilding stage. It's a big opportunity for a guy like him because their corners are Benjamin St. Juste, who I believe is on a rookie contract, I believe. And then you got Kendall Fuller. Kendall Fuller is on a bigger contract. And if you could show something the last few weeks, you have the opportunity to make a roster spot and potentially carve out a starting spot on a Commanders team because Kendall Fuller's in his last year, so they're going to have to an opening at the corner position. So I think it's a very big opportunity for Tariq Castro Fields for the Commanders.
Have you been impressed with Chase Young's performance on the 49ers so far, or have you been a bit underwhelmed? The Commander stand in the chat said could be a revenge game for Chase too. So is he gonna get a sack on Sam Howell and or Jacoby Brissett?
So I know most fans when Chase Young came over to the Niners, they were expecting a bigger sack numbers production, right? But I think he's been
I think
exactly what
that's
the
what
Niners
people
needed.
talked about him. Like they said, like he had all the talent and ability, but it was kind of like all put on him in Washington, and there was like surrounding factors that might have been holding him back that at the Niners wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, so with the Niners, the good thing is he doesn't have to get those sacks, right? But the thing is when you trade for a guy like him, you're expecting him to come in and put up those sack numbers. And that's what 49er fans I've seen on Twitter and on other platforms are like, oh, well, he hasn't done shit for us. He only has 2.5 sacks for us over the last X amount of games. And that's not what the Niners brought him in for. They brought him in it's been 5 games.
I think five, maybe 7. Right when I said that, I put it down because I was like, I could be wrong.
So for him, it's one of those ones where the Niners did bring him in to generate some pressure, but they brought him in because now you have a pass rusher opposite of Nick Bosa, who teams have to respect. We didn't have that prior to getting Chase Young. And if we take notice, what's happened to Nick Bosa since Chase Young has got here? We've seen his sack numbers go up. Why is that? It's because there's someone opposite of Nick Bosa who's generating respect from the opposing offense. And so I think this could be a revenge game. Could also be a revenge game for Kyle Shanahan and most notably Trent Williams.
There we go. Big Trent. I like that. I really like that. Really quickly, Douglas said, am I drinking beer or kombucha. I'm drinking neither. It's so bad. I wish it was kombucha. It's just apple cider vinegar in water. I had like really bad stomach issues, and my doctor told me that I should do that before I eat food. I don't know. I want to add stuff to it because I really like kombucha, but what I
I'm
realized
trying to
is
figure out what
just the
kombucha
vinegar is
is.
disgusting, and you need like sugar in it for it to be. So that's why if I'm like wincing while I'm drinking. Um, did you listen to Brock Purdy's press conference yesterday? My takeaway was that it was really vulnerable and I really appreciated it. But then I heard other takeaways that they actually were concerned that maybe Brock Purdy's confidence has been altered and that instead of it being maybe like humility, it was like a shaken Brock Purdy. So are you nervous about Brock Purdy, whether or not he bounces back against the Commanders? I don't know if that'll be a great test to see how he's doing because we've established that the Commanders just aren't in a position to win right now. But the next time he's in a big game, whether or not that's against the Rams for the first seed or in the playoffs, like are you worried about him kind of bouncing back? I feel like characteristics of him has been his assertiveness, his confidence, his poise, accuracy, stuff like that. But like since day one, people have really talked about him and his ability to kind of bounce back after a pick and stay confident, continue to be aggressive. Um, I felt like he was pretty vulnerable in talking about not being like that, but I almost felt like maybe he went too far and was like, oh, I'm just gonna, I don't want him to like become a shell of himself. So
I
are you
agree with
nervous
what you're
about Brock Purdy's
saying.
confidence?
I saw clips of the press conference, and I agree with what you're saying. It kind of sounded like he was kind of like, no, I do get shaken up in a way. Like it kind of felt like it did impact him mentally. And to me, it's like I like that, but at the same time, I don't because as an athlete, so I'm always big on you feel it, but you don't say it out loud, right? Like as an athlete, you're not gonna be like, oh, if someone's better than you, you're not gonna be like, oh, you're better than me. Like you can think it, but I'm never ever gonna say to that person when we're playing, you're better than me. Now post game, whatever, I'm like, damn, you're that dude. Or like when we're training, yeah, you're better than me. I'll admit it. So when I saw Brock Purdy saying, oh, it did impact me, and I have to stay true to who I am, and I believe I'm going to stay true to who I am. And he brought how his religion. He talked about his religion a little bit, how he believes this is what he's meant to do. Um, it gave me some confidence, but also kind of some doubt in the sense of Brock Purdy is a very confident young man. Like he's confident, that's for sure. We know he's confident. But the moment he started saying it did take a toll on him, that's where I was like, are you built for the bright lights? If you're built for the bright light, you're not gonna let that kind of game phase you. You're gonna say that I had a bad game, that's it. What were your thoughts on it? Because I know you said like you kind of like felt the same way.
Um, yeah, it was interesting. Like I think after years of watching like a Jimmy Garoppolo who it felt like he didn't take any self-criticism or blame, like he would go out and throw picks and then come back and be like, we just didn't play our best. And it's like, no, 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 no. And that's how I felt, by the way. Like I don't want to just keep rehashing the Ravens game, but I think that the 49ers could play that. I'll get to that in a second. I appreciated Brock Purdy's honesty and vulnerability in the press conference, but I did worry. It sounded like he was like, "I'm just a game manager. I found out I'm a game manager. I'm I I thought I was more. I thought I was more, and I'm not. And I'm gonna execute the system, and I didn't execute the system right, and now I'm gonna execute it. And I learned, and I was like, and I to be honest, I was kind of like,
Whoa,
I wonder what him and Kyle Shanahan talked about because, like, I think it's important for Brock
that's
Purdy to.
hot.
I think you want him to believe he's more though, because I think like your quarterback has to be willing to take the deeper shot. Like you have to be aggressive.
Damn.
So I don't know if that was like him. Maybe he's just feeling it in that moment and because we've seen him do this before, right? Like when it comes one of those interceptions, he's throwing. down the field, like to a guy who's covered when Debo is like right there, right in front. And like I think we've always said, like we actually like that he's the type of quarterback that does that, that passes up the easier throws for the harder throws. And he's made that mistake before, and he's walked into press conferences, hat in hand, and been like, but the only problem is it worked out before. But he was like, that was a bad decision. I'm not going to do that again. And I knew in my brain, I'm like, he's going to do that again because he thinks he can make that throw. And like so far, he has made that throw. And it just happened to be in this game, those throws didn't work out for him at all.
That's
Um,
crazy. I'm still shocked that you're like, damn, he, that's
I'm not
crazy.
saying, I'm not
No,
saying
no, you're
I
not.
believe
You're not.
that.
But like what he thought, like, that if
It
he
didn't
did,
seem because he
but
kept
the thing,
talking about execute, like he kept being like, and and to his credit, or to the credit of Kyle Shanahan, even after like 3 picks, it did feel like that game was in reach and that the 49ers could have won. They, in the first half, I know there's a lot of back and forth about whether or not they should have ran the ball more. And they probably definitely should have. In the first half, Christian McCaffrey
mm,
had 9 touches for like 90 yards. But they had almost 300 yards of offense. They were walking down the field throwing it. Like their offense looked really good. Like it didn't look bad. The skill position players were like looked really dominant. George Kittle was involved. They were getting first downs. They were walking down the field. It wasn't until the red zone when Brock Purdy just threw the ball to the other team. Like it wasn't like the offense that we've seen games where it felt stagnant. Like you were like, oh shit, like this as a whole, as like a unit, this game looks bad. In my opinion, this game, and I like Brock Purdy, but in my opinion, this game looked like Brock Purdy is doing bad. It didn't look like the offense was doing bad. Eventually, I think the defense got tired and then they ended up not looking good. But for that, all the way up until that third quarter, and even with Sam Darnold, literally until Sam Darnold threw an interception, they were almost within one score again. So I felt like the team as a whole, like when I think about meeting up with the Ravens again, if they were to go to the Super Bowl, it really would be on, hey, Brock Purdy, like you need to be mentally tough and not let this get you down. Because I think the Niners beat, and specifically Brock Purdy, beat themselves more than the Ravens beat the 49ers.
I agree.
But that's just
No,
my
but
opinion.
for me, so I do think there is pressure on Brock, right? And the reason why I say this is because Brock isn't owed much money, right, over the next couple of years. Now he's proven he could be a good quarterback in the NFL, but he hasn't proven that he could win a Super Bowl yet, right? And that's because he hasn't had the opportunity. He got hurt in the NFC Championship game, didn't have the opportunity to go and win a Super Bowl. That was opportunity wise. If he starts playing like this against some of the top teams in the playoffs, does it in the Super Bowl, right? The Niners don't owe him much financially. Where I guarantee you, at the back of his head, he understands I was a seventh round pick. I'm not owed much money. This is a business at the end of the day, right? Start having you start. I'm not saying this is who Brock is, but what I'm saying is if you start adding those kind of games up, bad games, you're out of the league fast. And he knows it because he was a late round pick. He's not owed much money. So the Niners, how much do the Niners actually have to like sit through this as if it was Jimmy Garoppolo, who they owed 28 million, 25 million for 3 years that was guaranteed, right? They had to sit through it. They had to say, you know what? I have to live with this. They don't have to live with it with
And
Brock Purdy over the next few years.
even if you don't want to come from it from that angle, because I don't think that he'd be out of the league, even
That
at the
I don't think he
49ers.
would
But like
either. But
I think a kind of similar to what you're saying, just on the pressure mindset, is and Brock Purdy kind of alluded to this, like he did hear the MVP talk. So maybe he's not worried about I'm gonna be out of the league, but he believes that he's a top 10, a top 5 quarterback. So he's trying to hold himself, like he hears all this stuff. And I think for him the pressure is the difference between I want to prove that I'm this good versus I want to optimize and execute this offense
mm-hmm,
well. And I don't care if people are saying I'm just a game manager or whatever. Because if I can keep this level of play for the next 5 years, 2 seasons, then I am going to get $100 million from the 49ers. If he just, not the 4-pick game, but if he kept this level of play, like he'd get paid like a top 5
yeah, yeah.
quarterback even if he's not showing it with his arm or whatever, but just how well he's been able to execute the system. But I think there is like a confidence or maybe ego that, and I don't want to say ego in a bad way, because I think any football player that made it to the NFL has an ego.
Everyone.
But like, I think there's probably an ego to him that's like, screw that. Like, I am a game changer. I'm better than this. And I think he went into that game kind of trying to prove that. And I hope someone just sits him down and says, like, you'll have your opportunity to submit yourself. Tom Brady was called a game manager for like, he had like 6 Super Bowls, and people were still like, oh, I don't know, is he that good? You know what I mean? Like, I think he literally had to go to a different team and then win a Super Bowl there for anyone to like respect him. So I think the 7th round pick thing, Mr. Irrelevant, is gonna follow Brock Purdy his whole career, and what he needs to get to is being at the place that doesn't matter, and he's more concerned about winning football games, getting the playoffs, winning Super Bowls than he is with personal accolades, because the personal accolades will come if he's that successful as a team.
And I don't think he's focused on the personal accolades. I'll be honest with you, I really don't think he cares about the MVP award or anything like that. But
Yeah.
for me, it's more so looking at Brock, like the confidence, right? Like I felt like he was vulnerable. I felt like it was more so accountability. But at the same time, we have to look at the fact that he was a 7th round pick. At the end of the day, even though it doesn't matter on his game, like how he plays, at the end of the day, that goes to the back of the head of an NFL player, right? Because they understand it's the business at the end of the day. They understand the business aspect of it. If he starts playing bad, they start losing in the Super Bowl, and it's because of him, the Niners won't hold on to him over the next couple of years. That's just something that the Niners won't do, because what they could do is bring in another quarterback. Now, I know you mentioned Sam Darnold, and you mentioned a little bit of the game plan from that Ravens game. I don't think the Niners should have ran the ball earlier in the first quarter. I felt like they had a great game plan, scheming things open, wide ass open, and it wasn't even like open. It was wide ass open. George Kittle was wide ass open on 2 of those big plays. Now, to me, that just shows a coach saying, you know what, I'm gonna out scheme this defense. You're throwing to the open guy. Brock Purdy was hitting on him. I didn't see anyone saying when Brock was hitting on the 20-something yard pass plays to George Kittle saying, why aren't we running the ball? I didn't see anyone saying that. I saw people tweeting, let's go, gonna be a big game. That's what I saw right away on Twitter. Now you go back 50-50 hindsight, and people were like, we probably should have ran the ball more. No, we shouldn't have ran the ball more. What we should have done is not turn the ball over in the red zone and driving.
That was my takeaway. That's been my takeaway, because
So
I will say, I talked to Steph, and she said she was at the game and she felt like there was opportunities for them to run the ball, but the 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 only way, the reason that I can understand that is maybe after an interception, then Kyle Shanahan maybe could have recalibrated his game plan and been like, maybe Brock's a little off today, maybe he feels a little amped. But at the same time, I think then there'd be, on the opposite scale, there'd be criticism. Kyle
do you
Shanahan
trust
lost
them?
faith in Brock Purdy and he took the ball out of his hand. So it's just like, I think that was a hard, I think it's just a hard game when your quarterback is so off like that. And I think Brock Purdy's a great quarterback. I think he was really off that game. But yeah, I don't think that the Ravens gave the league, or at least not the Washington Commanders, a blueprint to beat Brock Purdy just because of their personnel. Now, while we're kind of talking about Kyle Shanahan, because I'm kind of excusing him and saying I think he got a little bit too much hate, because I didn't see a huge problem with the run versus pass, at least in the first half, the way it was called. Now, how do you feel about Kyle Shanahan not over? Because what was it? They had some game a little while ago where they were down. Their first, was it against? It was I forget which game it
You
was,
have
but
just to you have the stat backwards. He's 0-38, not 38-0.
there we go. There we
I'm
go.
looking
Nice.
at him like I was looking at him like taking a look at
He's
it. I'm
just
trying to like
super,
think
super
about.
good. Don't worry.
I was like, damn,
He's
we.
super good. Um, I was talking with Crocky after a game where I ride the emotions. So the 49ers came out and they were really bad. right away. And I was like, oh, I think it was the Eagles game. It was, like the first quarter, I was like, what the heck? Like, this is terrible. Well, then they end up dominating the Eagles. And I was talking to Eric Crocker after, and he was like, oh, no, I knew the whole game that the 49ers were going to blow them out because the 49ers were playing the worst football that they could have played. And the Eagles were playing the best football they could have played. And they only like had like a field goal or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept that mindset. Crocky made me stupidly optimistic. So I kept that mindset. And coming out of the halftime,
You're like,
I'm
we
like,
won.
Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions. There's no way it gets worse than that. He's never had a single game where he's thrown 3 interceptions all game, let alone in a half. They're gonna come out, they're gonna win. Like I was like confident. I was confident until Sam Darnold threw an interception. That's how long I kept faith for. I was like, it's within 2 scores. It's about to be within 1 score. Just kidding. Sam Darnold is the backup quarterback, and obviously he threw an interception.
See, but that wasn't
Great.
his fault. So the only time I think Kyle Shanahan should have ran the ball was all 30 plays in the red zone at the one. Every single play should have been a run play. Like
Right.
it should be no. You have nothing to check to.
And that was the thing, right? Because the Ravens were bad against or they were good first against the pass, bad against the run, and really good in the red zone. So you would think in the red zone, run the ball.
Yeah. So for me, so I know a lot of people criticize Kyle for not running the ball in the first half. I didn't really care because we were moving the offense was moving the ball. It was just turnovers, and now when you're turning the ball over, you're not going to score points, and that's why the offense looks bad, right? And we'll get to the Kyle being 0-38 right now, but I thought the offense during that when they were down 14, you have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield and you run the ball at the one, you get stuffed, you doesn't get it, but you have Christian McCaffrey. Run the ball 3 more times. Shit, why are we throwing it? Why are we going play action in the red zone out of the gun? To me, I'm like, that's where I was like, come on, Kyle, like you know better than that. One, I get Sam Darnold as your backup, but Sam Darnold didn't play bad outside of that interception. But it's even then, you're throwing the ball from it was 4th and goal at the 10. You're trying too hard. You're down 14 anyways. You just got to put something in the end zone. Now, there was someone one-on-one in the end zone rather than throwing into triple coverage. But Sam Darnold wasn't the reason that interception happened. That interception happened because of Kyle Shanahan's play calls. If you run the ball 3 times in a row, you're scoring a touchdown. It's a one touchdown game. Your defense gets the ball, you have an opportunity to go and win it.
Why did Kyle Shanahan try to get Sam Darnold a touchdown there? Here.
I don't know. But if you look at what Grant said Kyle wanted some quarterback controversy. I don't agree with it. I know Grant when he saw that I was like, that's interesting. Like don't get me wrong, like I love Grant, but when I saw that I was like, that's interesting because if you had quarterback controversy this late in the season, let's say Sam Darnold led.
I mean, I understand the takeaway because it felt like Brock Purdy had his helmet on. Like Brock Purdy was like, I want to go back in the game, and Kyle Shanahan was like, you're gonna sit down. Like he had that paper over him, and I was like, I would not want to be on the other side of that paper with whatever Kyle is telling Brock Purdy right now. And then I mean, Kyle has openly called Sam Darnold the next Steve Young. So, and Brock Purdy is like, how did I get my job? I outplayed the guy. So yeah, you're right. That's in his. It's a funny thought. It's a funny thought for sure.
But being 0-38, because I know you asked me that right now. So Kyle being 0-38 when down by 8, I would ask because this stat is skewed, right? And the reason I'm gonna say this, going into that fourth quarter, the Niners weren't down 8; they were down more than 8, right? How many times going into the fourth quarter has Kyle Shanahan been down by exactly 8 points? I don't know because I haven't looked at the stat, but I've seen there's a couple of stat guys that they keep mentioning this stat to talk about Kyle like in a negative aspect. But then when I've asked one of them how many times has he been down by exactly 8 points, because you could be 0-4 by down 8 points or 1-4 or whatever by down exactly 8 points, right? Or if 0-4 down by 8. But when you're down, how many teams are coming back when they're down 14 going into the fourth? How many teams are winning when they're down 10 going into the fourth? Not many. It's not happening in the NFL because teams, they understand kill the clock, the momentum of the game, go get a field goal. That's all you need
You
is a
would think
field
that
goal.
it would happen like one time out of all 38 times.
But the thing is, though, is how many times are the Niners down by just 8 points going into the fourth? Most of the time, when the Niners are down going into the fourth, it's either by 10 plus or we're getting blown out. When he had his bad teams, most of them came from those bad teams. So, like us now, you don't see the Niners going into the fourth quarter down by points. Like this week, they were down, what was it, 21 going into the fourth? Or I believe 14 or 21 going into the fourth.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, what team's coming back for 21 in the fourth quarter? Like, you don't see it. And when you do see that, it's like, oh shit, they just came back. So, like, for me, when I do see the stat, I don't take it as like, oh shit, Kyle can't come back and win. I've seen him do it when he's down in the third quarter. They'll be good, like late third quarter, they're down 14. He scores a touchdown. We come back and end up winning the game because we're only down 7. Right? He was down
Yeah.
7 though. Like, you know, things so like I
You're
don't really
right.
look.
Like it's like a specific number that they
Yeah,
people
so
are.
like it's like we could go and do this with most coaches and just change the numbers. Like, okay, well, Sean McVay, I don't think he has a great record down by at least 8 in the fourth quarter. Like, so for me, I don't really look at it in too much into depth, like as a negative on Kyle, because in the NFL, if when you're down by at least 8 in the fourth quarter, you're most likely not coming back unless you have Patrick Mahomes, who has that stupid, ridiculous stat of being when he's down by double digits. Like he has some
Yeah,
crazy. Him and Andy
yeah,
Reid
yeah.
have
It's
this
just like
stupid,
better
crazy
when he's down.
stat.
It doesn't make any sense. You're
Yeah,
like,
I'm like,
what?
dude, how's that possible? Or if you're Tom Brady, like Tom, I felt like Tom Brady came back from anything too. Like, so those are like, I don't really look at it in a bad perspective in terms of on Kyle, because most teams know when they're down, when they're up 8, at least 8. Hey, drive the ball, kill the clock, go get at least the field goal. You're not really looking for a touchdown. If you get a field goal, you're in a good situation.
Kurt Benkert, he was the fourth or the third string quarterback for the 49ers in 2021. He came out on Twitter during the game, but he actually said it like 2 years ago, and I sent the clip at the time to Grant. Um, but he has openly talked about the 49ers not practicing 2-minute drill during practice. And during that last game, during the Ravens game, he tweeted out that the 49ers are not built to come from behind. Do you agree with that? Because I kind of think that a team with such explosive players, maybe like their problem is they don't practice it enough, but I feel like this team should be a team that could come from behind easily with how many like weapons skill position players they have and abilities to kind of have that big play. I know a lot of times they prefer to run, but I feel like especially this season they have had way more explosives and like leaned on the passing game more, which in my opinion, if you're going to try to come from behind, that's what you're trying to lean on, right?
So I'm gonna ask this question: what's Kyle Shanahan's offense built on? His favorite thing to do, like when you start the game, when Kyle's offense, he loves to run the ball, right? So what it allows him to do is allows him to get to the play action. So when he gets to the play action, that's why we're getting all those explosives, because you're sucking in the defense, all eyes are coming in, play action, you're drawing drawing the linebackers in, you're creating space. That's why his offenses are damn explosive and they score points. So when you don't have the luxury of the play action being um, like set in stone, like for example, if I'm down 21 points, I can't really go play action. Now, I could do it, but a team's not going to fall for it, right? Like if I'm down 21, if you're up 21 and you're the linebacker, you're not really worried about the run game. And the reason is the most things we have to do is, as a linebacker, let them run the ball. You're going to kill the clock. It's their fault. They end up losing, right? Niners aren't built to go straight drop back. That's just not their style, because Kyle loves to go play action. And I think that's more so, if I was to talk to Kurt on why I think that they're not a come from behind team, because Kyle's a play action type of offense. When you're down big, you can't stick to the run. And that's why you see the Niners not being a
He's
come from
gotten
behind team.
criticism for his drop back passing game from in JT O'Sullivan's videos too. I've also heard that. What
Because
you're saying, right?
he does because he goes straight. He goes seven step drops. You don't really see that from teams in the NFL no more. That's like 19, like the 90s, early 2000s kind of offense in terms of drop state 7 step drops, and that's kind of what JT O'Sullivan's criticized, not necessarily the straight drop back game. When he does the 3 step drops, he loves it. 5 step drops, he loves it. But it's when he does his 7 step drops, no play action or nothing to it. That's where JTO has criticized him for.
I have one more question. I have a couple more things, but really quick, just in the chat, I just want to say I really appreciate every content creator. I like all their ideas. I think that it makes the 49er space a lot more fun to have challenging opinions. And specifically with the content creator that is being mentioned in the comments, I think he's a really wonderful person, just on a personal level too. I know that people can get, mad about people being critical, but whether it's Larry, whether it's Grant, whether it's David Lombardi, even we can all have jokes, but let's not say anything about like someone being like literally like a bad person. I just don't think that that's necessary. But I'm glad that you're watching here. And then I did want to say, because I hate to look ahead, but we're not the 49ers, so we can do that. I was watching the Warner House, which is the podcast that Fred Warner has with his wife, and he I talked about this yesterday with Steph, and I didn't quite understand. I think what happened is he tried to like he tried to he basically said that the number 1 seed wasn't important, and that it wasn't important, and that all that mattered is that the 49ers are playing their best football. But obviously, in order to get the number 1 seed, they would have to win the next couple games, which means that they would be playing their best football. And I think what happened is like she kind of had butt in and said not butt in, but she had like interjected and said something, and she was like, "Oh, like yeah, that makes sense. Like even if you guys won, it wouldn't be good if you guys had just played if they had just played the Ravens and they had won that game, that still wouldn't be like a good game to like go into the playoffs on." And I think what he was trying to say is like because he started saying he agreed with her, and then I think he realized he was agreeing with her and didn't want to say that it's good to lose. So then he was like, well, no, like it's better to learn from a win. Like we'd still rather win and just have a lot to learn from. So I think he just kind of got mixed up on his words. But it had me thinking, do you think that the 49ers can win the Super Bowl? Like how drastically do your expectations for a 49ers Super Bowl win go down if they don't get that number 1 seed?
I don't think it necessarily goes down because I do agree with him, right? In terms of you want to go into the playoffs playing your best football, right? Even if it's like you don't want to be playing, like for example, if the Niners would have beat the Ravens by 3, but they played super shitty, it's not playing your best football. Like you won because the Ravens probably had played bad too, and they didn't play up to their level, even though you played shitty. So I think that's kind of what he was trying to say because I do watch the podcast too. So I felt like for him, I think they do care about the 1 seed. I think
I
they
did too.
do care.
It
Like
seemed like he was saying that, and then like she said that, and like I like their dynamic because I think he tries to be kind of professional and
he
like
tries
know
to be
what.
sweet to her too, though. So like he doesn't want to be like because obviously like you could kind of tell she doesn't really like know
Yeah,
football like that. But he tries to be sweet, like the nice husband he is, and like
right.
to be like yeah. Like so it's a fun podcast to watch.
I liked her when she was complimenting Rokon Smith. She like kind of she like went to trash other people, and she was like, this is me saying this, so like don't get mad at Fred. And then she was like, normally when I'm watching linebackers, I think that they they suck, but with Rokon Smith, I was like, oh, like he's doing that same thing where like he feels very aware. I thought that was like a funny little comment from her.
Yeah,
um
it's a cool podcast. Like, but like I agree. Like I think Fred really does care about the 1 seed. I don't think it would change if the Niners weren't the 1 seed and they're playing their best football. And like they say, they had blown out the Ravens by 30. They beat the Commanders by 30. and then they beat the Rams by whatever, right? They're playing hot football, but they somehow are the number 2 seed. I wouldn't really be worried because the hot teams in the playoffs are usually the teams that are playing the best team. So I get what he meant by we want to be the team that's playing well. For example, the Rams, they're playing damn good football right now.
Yeah.
And if they go into the playoffs playing how they're playing right now, they're going to make some noise in the playoffs.
Are you worried about that Week 18 matchup for the
It's going to be
49ers?
fun. It's
Yeah,
going to be
I
real
think it's going to
fun.
be a really good game, which is cool because in the beginning of the season, people did not anticipate that was going to be a good game. And then with people also kind of hypothesizing the 49ers would beat the Rams, I think people were like, oh, like the 49ers might sit. Now it's like, it almost feels like an extra playoff game. Obviously, they're still in the playoffs. It's not like win or go home, but it does feel like it's going to have that type of atmosphere and environment. And no matter what Fred says, like, because I think about how all of them before the Eagles game that week were like, not a big deal. And then they won and they were like, yeah, like we all really wanted to win. So like I definitely think that they're gonna get up for that Rams game for sure. I think Sean McVay deserves a ton of credit for what he's done with that game. And I do think Matthew Stafford might be either the scariest or do you think he's the scariest quarterback in the NFC? Yeah.
I think so. Well, the reason is probably I think he's the best quarterback in the NFC. He's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, so he has the experience. I think, if we're gonna have Lamar in the MVP conversation, I think Stafford should be in the MVP conversation. Like
that's an interesting one. Like talking about
it's
where would the Rams be if they didn't have Stafford right now?
Yeah, like it's crazy because I get a lot of some of the guys who were talking stat wise, like who should be in the MVP race because of the stats and what they've done throughout the season. And then you have the guys who they lost to this team. He played bad this week, played this and right. Stafford's playing really good football. He's probably the best quarterback in the NFC. His team is on the verge to make the playoffs. I don't believe he did. Did he play every game this year? I'm not too sure if he did or
No,
not,
he
but
didn't. So I think
he was
that was
injured,
not.
right?
Yeah.
So for him, without him, they struggled. So for me, I think Stafford is up there in the race.
Bless you. Oh, bless you.
Thank you. So I think that's going to be a fun game. I think you don't. So I personally think that the conversation of Stafford being the scariest is there, I agree with you.
Puka Nacua is very good. Not underrated, but he's very good. If it wasn't for CJ Stroud, I think he would be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. And then I thought this was a good question. Who do you fear the most in the NFC for the playoffs?
The
Dallas.
Niners.
No. Well, as the 49ers, which team do you fear the most? Rams, Dallas, Lions.
Probably the Niners beating themselves.
The 40. Oh, okay, I see. I didn't even get it the first time you said it.
Because
I was
I think the only way the Niners don't make it to the Super Bowl is if they beat themselves. You turn the ball over and you beat yourself. I think there's no other team that legitimately puts fear in me in the NFC. I think the Cowboys are a good team. I think Philly's a good team. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying those teams aren't good, but Philly's having their own trouble in their locker room. You can see it. They're getting ready to explode. They don't like It's whether they don't like Nick Sirianni no more. They're not rolling with his vibe or what's going on over there.
Dallas 49ers killed them.
Dallas is more worried about us losing than they are worried about themselves winning. The Lions are frauds. They lost. They aren't. They played down to their competition, and I don't think they have the defense to stop the 49ers. So looking at everything, I would probably say the team I truly fear the most is us beating ourselves.
Stafford will give the 49ers at least two. The weird thing is he's actually been protecting the ball a little bit better since he's came back from injury this year. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Like Matthew Stafford of old, and I'm not saying he won't. He might still give the 49ers opportunities, but I definitely think he'll make it in this in the same way that like Josh Allen throws an interception every single, and I'm not trying to compare the players, but I'm just trying to compare the play style maybe, where Josh Allen throws an interception like every game, but he's also like throwing touchdowns every 5 seconds. So is I see you reading something really intensely.
I'm trying to get Randy Elite comments. So we got to cut the team some slack. They were previously 13 and lost 3 and won 6 in a row. 13 and 0, 0 and 3, 6 and 0. Trying to
We gotta
understand
cut
that.
we gotta cut the team some slack. They were previously 13 and lost 3 and won 6 in a row. Huh?
I don't know who he's talking about.
Which
Is he
team?
talking about the Niners?
13 and 0. You got to be allowed to lose some. If you're talking about the 49ers, we agree. I mean, we're talking about the Ravens game because it was a big game and it was a challenging competition. And unfortunately, against really tough physical teams, which is going to be the type of team that the 49ers are going to face in the playoff, or not in the play, in the Super Bowl, unless they see the Chiefs, and maybe the Chiefs aren't as physical as the Browns or the Ravens, but I still think that the Chiefs are not scared of the 49ers. We're just talking about the game, but both of us are making the case for the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl right now. We're not saying they suck all of a sudden. I even made the case that I thought that the team as a whole did fairly well, and I think the majority of the loss was on Brock Purdy, and I think he's a good quarterback who won't continue to have multi-interception games. But yeah, I don't know. Did we go 13 and 0? I don't know. I don't
I
know about
don't
that.
think so. I think we were 5 and 0, lost 3 in a row, and then we won
Niners.
11 and 6 in a row. So I think we were 5 and 0, lost 3 in a row, won 6 in a row, and then lost 1. I think we're 11 and 4. Could be wrong.
I feel that. But we feel you, Randy. I mean, we were just saying Marco was just making the case that the only way that the 49ers don't get to the Super Bowl is if they beat themselves. I think the Rams are scary. I think you're right. The 49ers would have to turn the ball over, but I can see it being a close game. I for a while I was thinking even the Lions, but I think that Kyle Shanahan just has Jared Goff's number, and they're a very offensive team. Like their defense is very bad. So I don't think that they would give the 49ers too much trouble. But it really is any given Sunday. And I'm really excited for it feels bad, or it feels like I'm like skipping over the Commanders game, but it just doesn't feel like they're gonna be that much of a challenge. I'm really excited for the playoffs and for the Rams game because I think that they're gonna be challenging games, and the 49ers haven't been in a lot of challenging games this year. I have confidence that they can bounce back and perform better. Like I said, in that Rams game, after 3 picks, I think that if they would have came out in that third quarter, the defense would have held up a little bit more. There was a turning point where they were down 4 points, and then all of a sudden it was like 32 to like whatever. Like the Ravens, the 49ers went 3 and out, threw an interception, and the Ravens threw back-to-back touchdowns. And that was kind of a turning point. And even with that, the 49ers almost got it to a one-score game at the end. And like Marco was saying, if they would have ran the ball, they would have gotten into a one-score game with literally like 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and then they could have potentially gotten another touchdown. And that is where people who criticize Kyle Shanahan have a little bit of I can like understand their point there, because I don't think that the way he handled the first half was bad, but I think the second half was interesting. Now, I want to end on a little bit of over under. This is going to be a little bit interesting because we don't know exactly who the quarterback for the Commanders are, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to start just off hot because we've been talking a lot about Brock Purdy's confidence and his ability to bounce back or flush the game or not flush the game. Was he affected? Do you think Brock Purdy over or under 0.5 touchdowns? Or not point, sorry. Well, 0.5 interceptions.
0.5 interceptions?
Yeah.
I'm going to go under. I don't think he throws an interception. I mean, they're missing two corners. They're missing a safety. If you throw an
You don't think Terry
interception,
Casserfield is gonna snatch one up?
I don't know. Like if you're throwing an interception against like the Commanders' backups, not a good sign going into the playoffs. But I don't
So
think so. I'm gonna go no. I'm gonna say no.
I'm also going no. Now over under 2.5 touchdowns.
I'm gonna go under. I don't think he's throwing 3 touchdowns. I think you'll see a heavy dose of CMC, and then you'll see.
If Christian McCaffrey scores 2 to 3 touchdowns in both this game and Week 18, I think he could still be in that MVP conversation, don't you?
I think
Because I know they're saying Lamar, but Lamar right now has less touchdowns than Brock Purdy does. Like if he won MVP, I think compared to other MVPs, like he's not on the same caliber. Like, do you know what I mean? I like if he won MVP, it would solely be because of his performance against the 49ers, which I feel like is not what the award is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about the year as a total. I don't know. Not
I
saying that
think
he doesn't
Lamar.
deserve it. I think if he wasn't on that team, they would be competitive. So I do think he deserves it. But just because I do think that they consider stats, I don't think his stats are on the same level as most MVP caliber quarterbacks have been in the past.
I think Lamar has less touchdowns than Christian McCaffrey. I think Lamar has 24. How many does Christian McCaffrey have? Now I'm very curious because Lamar has 5 rushing and 19 um,
Passing.
passing. CMC has 14 rushing touchdowns. How many does he have receiving? Oh, he has a handful. Let's check this
I
out.
think he has
I'm
like 21 or 24 touchdowns right now because people were talking about him trying to get to 24,
22.
22.
So he has
So
14.
if Christian McCaffrey got 2 or 3 touchdowns in the next 2 games, don't you think he'd have a good case for the MVP?
Yeah, he has. I think Christian McCaffrey has 21 touchdowns to Lamar's. What did I say Lamar had? 24
19 passing and
and
something else.
5. Yeah, 24. 20. Yeah, CMC's MVP, and it's not even close. Like, what do we? If oh my god! Now I'm looking at them like, whoa, what we're giving? All right, we're giving literally. If we change the MVP rules to give Lamar Jackson the MVP because he beat the best team in the NFL, there's
That
issues
would
here with the
totally
MVP.
change
Like
the way
it's
that.
yeah, at this point, don't even nothing matters the first 12 games of the
Yeah,
season.
it's all
Like,
about like the very
yeah,
like
that's
final primetime game.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. Because if looking at it, CMC has 21 touchdowns, Lamar has 24. CMC is gonna
Um,
hit 2,000 yards. Like, jeez, I'm confused.
I was just looking in the comments. I agree. I think that Kyle Shanahan will try to build Brock Purdy's confidence back up within the game, but I think Brock Purdy will throw probably like 1, maybe 2 touchdowns, but I went under on the 2.5. I think Christian McCaffrey, let's go over under point or 1.5. So
I
do you
think
think
he's going to
he's
be over. I think CMC is going to have at least one rushing touchdown, may have a receiving touchdown or another rushing touchdown. I think CMC is going to have a really big game. Won't be shocked if he goes for over 200 yards total yards in terms of rushing and receiving. I won't be shocked if he has 200 yards.
I like that. I like the idea of Kyle being like, Brock Purdy, I gave you the opportunity to do the MVP thing. Now we're giving it to Christian. You know? Okay, what about Chase? Some people were talking about revenge game. Chase Young over under 0.5 sacks.
I think Chase Young will get a sack, especially against that O line banged up, going against the backups. He's going to get a sack, and I'm excited for his celebration. I wonder what that's going to be. That's usually what I pay attention to. You'll see like how a player like respects an organization or doesn't respect an organization on his return, like when he returns, and like how he celebrates during that game.
I like that thought. Okay, I'm gonna do 0.5 interceptions for, should we say Sam Howell? I think maybe.
We'll just go Commanders. We'll just go Commanders because we don't know who it's going to be.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, there we go. 0.5
I'm gonna go
interceptions.
over. I'm gonna go over because
Me
they're
too.
gonna be down. They're gonna throw an interception. They might even throw 2.
I agree. I'm gonna go. Do you want to go over under point or 1.5 to make it harder?
Yeah, we do 1.5 because we know they're going to throw 1. I think I'll go over. I think they're going to throw 2 interceptions just because if it's Sam Howell, he's going to try to push the ball downfield. I hope Trivarius Ward gets one, Mooney gets one, makes him
Yeah.
that All Pro corner, and I could see the super random, but I could see Logan Ryan stepping in and getting an interception in
There
his
you
first game
go.
back.
There you go. Making a name for himself. I like that. I like that a lot. Um, this guy said Cleveland Farrell will get a sack. He's low key been playing really, really good. I or not. Sorry, I'm thinking about Randy Gregory. I don't know where my
Farrell
brain.
plays with a crazy motor. Like I've never
Yeah,
seen someone play like that. Dude don't stop. Like he's sideline to side, like the ball be on the other side. And he's sprinting. I'm like, dang, you could chill when you're running, you're chasing. Like you don't have to. Like not all D linemen do that.
look, so passionate
I
about
agree.
Christian McCaffrey being love you, Daddy. Really passionate about Christian McCaffrey being the true MVP. And then Randy says CMC was already robbed by 2000. I think Lamar did have when I will say like if Christian McCaffrey won this year, I think he has a much better case over Lamar. Where I think Lamar was was performing better in 2019 than he is now. That makes sense. Like I think it made sense that he won in 2019. Not that I actually think his play style has improved a lot, but I just think number wise, it wouldn't make sense to give Lamar the MVP over Christian McCaffrey as long as Christian McCaffrey keeps up with offensive production. But can you think of any other little bets before we close out? I really have to pee all of a sudden, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you're
end this
good.
abruptly.
You're good
Sorry,
at
guys.
ending. You're good at
It's
ending.
just this apple cider vinegar freaking water that I'm drinking, you know? Um,
Uh,
just kidding. But I hope everyone has a really good weekend. I hope that the 49ers beat the Commanders by a lot. It's going to be real embarrassing for us if that doesn't happen. And for pretty much every 49ers content creator, because I think that we've just consistently talked about how the Commanders are like not even a team worth speaking about. So let's hope that that happens. Everyone, um, I'm pulling for Kinlaw to get a sack. That'd be good. He's shown up. He's shown up well. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Try to stay warm if it's raining where you are, where it's cold where you are. Thank you so much for joining Marco and I, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.